Death fascinates me. There's something about finality and how people talk about it that makes me attracted to death. In brief, I feel like death gives meaning to life. Keeping that in mind, death has been a constant theme in many works of literature, religion, movies, and TV shows. One that immediately comes to mind is the eulogy episode from BoJack Horseman. But the work that I'm reviewing today is one of the most famous elegies ever written. It's written by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It's called In Memoriam AHH, which is his friend Arthur Hallen, maybe. I don't recall his exact name. But anyway, it's a very popular, very long poem written over a course of 10 or 20 years, I believe, after the death of his friend. And it's very interesting because he goes through the many different phases of grief, acceptance, consolation, moving forward in life, nature, the role of God, for example. Our poet is a staunch Christian, so that comes up quite a bit in the text. Why I find it interesting is because death is mysterious to say the least. You need a artist to explain such things to you. You can't write a scientific essay about how people feel after a close friend has passed away. I have been there, and when you are in such a moment, you have no words. You cannot read up articles on how to deal with this. It's not something scientifically approachable, at least to the regular person that I am. You need art to do it. You need music, painting, poems, and I don't know what else, but it's something outside the realms of scientific experiment and analysis. So when you are in such a stage where you can only depend on art to express your feeling, how does that come out? How do you explain to other people how you feel when you are a skilled poet, a skilled author? It's a responsibility that is too big to bear. And luckily for us, Tennyson is skilled at his art, and we get this 131 canto long poem with many different faces and many different interpretations of how to deal with this and how he felt at the time. And he brings us along for the ride. Okay, so with that brief introduction, I also wanted to quickly mention that the audio that I uploaded is not the entire elegy. It's, like I said, very long, but I chose only the parts that I like. These are the first 27 cantos, and then I've cherry picked a few up until the end, and then the entire epilogue, which deals with the marriage of Tennyson's daughter with one of Arthur's colleagues, I believe, but we'll get to that soon enough. Let's see my notes. The initial reactions are that of rage and survivor's guilt, for lack of a better word, disappointment in God. It's pure rage. It's Tennyson not being able to accept reality as it is because the death of his friend was so sudden, and it's not a future that he had ever imagined. So he questions a lot of things: nature, God, things around him, and why it had to be this way. This constant feeling of despair, and it's done brilliantly. These are my favorite paragraphs. Quote, "Forgive these wild and wandering cries, confusions of a wasted youth. Forgive them where they fail in truth, and in thy wisdom make me wise. End quote. The cantos follow the rhyme scheme of A B B A, so it's like a song almost. They follow I don't know what it's called, but it's a 4 meter word line. So you have the pentameter. I believe this would be called the tetrameter then. But they have this rhythmic feel to them, which makes it easier to read such a long poem. You can hear the despair in his words. Whom do you blame it on? He goes on to claim that we are not privy to God's plans, so should we take it at face value that all things must happen the way they do and it's all for the good? He finds it hard to believe that if that was the case, then why did you take away this friend from me? We spent so many good moments together that cannot be put in words. You gave me this friend, so why take him away? And towards the end of this 27th canto, we get to the famous line, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Again, very interesting. I don't want to jump there, but that seems like how you would deal with it. You should feel lucky that you ever got to meet that person, that brilliant person, and you have to accept it and you have to feel grateful that even in the small time that you were together, you were able to experience such highs and lows that nothing else compares to that. And not having that feeling is much worse than going through the ups and downs of life with that person. There are a few cantos in between that I'd like to shout out. Quote, "Oh, what to her shall be the end, and what to me remains of good? To her perpetual maidenhood, and unto me no second friend." You can see how the poet uses what remains as a concept to explain that there is nothing left of him but that friendship that I spent so long to develop and enjoy. All those memories are all that is left, and you have to deal with that somehow. It's never going to come back. And that is a powerful place to be in, that of acceptance. Quote, "And saying, comes he thus, my friend? Is this the end of all my care? And circle mourning in the air? Is this the end? Is this the end?" End quote. How utterly frustrated must he be to learn that nothing he ever does again can bring him back. That's the kind of bond that they shared. I don't know if you could tell in the audiobook, but I got quite emotional in some of these places and I had to pause and come back to it because it was so heavy. Quote, "Who speak their feeling as it is, and weep the fullness from the mind. It will be hard, they say, to find another service such as this. My lighter moods are like to these, that out of words a comfort win. But there are other griefs within, and tears that at their fountain freeze." End quote. Look how brilliantly he explains that the pain that he is feeling, he is unable to put into words. There is, again, the utter feeling of despair that he cannot explain to others how sorrowful he feels. People will say that it will be okay and it was all for the good, or that he is in a better place, but and you might gain some temporary happiness with that, with those words, but You have that within, deep within you, that sorrow that refuses to express itself in words because it is that heavy. See how he moves forward after this quote, "Still onwards wends the dreary way, I with it, for I long to prove no lapse of moons can canker love, whatever fickle tongues may say." End quote. I don't care what people say. I have to prove to others that my love for my friend was real and nothing can take that away. I hold it true, whatever befall, I feel it when I sorrow most. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And here comes the passage about us not knowing why God did this, but we have to have faith that it was for the betterment of humanity or for us. How? Quote, "Behold, we know not anything. I can but trust that good shall fall at last, far off, at last, to all, and every winter change to spring." End quote. This is reminiscent of Shelley's "If winter comes, will spring be far behind?" Something like that. Maybe I'll read it after this one. They are, well, Tennyson is a Victorian era poet, from what I recall, but he is one of the romantics. But anyway, you have to believe that after something bad happens, good comes. Light is at the end of the tunnel, and you have to push through. And that, okay, here we have another stanza where you see that whoever has died, be it long ago or recent, they never really are taken away from you because you both shared memories and they live inside you. Quote, "So word by word and line by line the dead man touched me from the past, and all at once it seemed at last the living soul was flashed on mine." You get these flashes of life, of hope, of love from people long dead. Would you call it your memories or is it something else? Is it nature? Hard to say. This is towards the end of the poem. I think that was Canto 88 or something in that range. Anyway, we have a beautiful epilogue where we have a wedding going on between Tennyson's daughter and the friend's colleague, and he says, quote, "That God which ever lives and loves, one God, one law, one element, and one far off divine event, to which the whole creation moves." End quote. Even though all of this has happened, even though I've loved and I've lost, life has to go on because new life comes into picture. There is a child that will be born of this wedding that takes forward your legacy, that will remind me of you after all of the trials that I've been through, and you never really left my side. If you want a happy ending, there it is. It's a tumultuous poem to go through. You need to be in the mood for it, a somber mood, if you will. But if you enjoy poetry, then sure. If you haven't read this one, it's a very famous elegy, and you should definitely pick it up. Thank you for listening.